another country or another people not to be a victim of what they have been victims of.
Sir, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry has reiterated categorical rejection to military operation in the Palestinian city of Rafah. How do you see the prospects for such a move by the occupation?
Well, I wish I could share with His Excellency the Minister of Foreign Affairs the same optimistic view. The idea that Israel will not concede unless it is forced to do so. And, of course, with the latest veto from the Americans against the creation of a Palestinian state, which is actually a recognition of something that is already there. There is a Palestinian people, there is a Palestinian territory. All what's left is the political will to reinstate this country where it should be. But unfortunately, the Americans choose once again to be totally away from the rest of the international community and to be cast away by their own hands and following Israel to whatever Israel wants. And accordingly, I think that I cannot share the same point of view, because if Israel decides to invade and to do a terrestrial operation in Rafah, because the United States will never lift a finger to stop them from doing so. And they, not just that, actually, they just approved, the Congress and the Senate approved a deal of $26 billion to Israel as a military aid, of course, with another $62 million for Ukraine as well, which shows the paradox that the United States is living in. On one side, they're helping the victim, and on the other side, they're helping the oppressor. And in both cases, they claim that they're defending the human rights. So unless the United States chose to support the same reason in both cases, which is either to support both oppressors or to support both colonialized people. But if they don't do so, then Israel will continue its aggression, and I'm not, unfortunately, optimistic that they will stop unless they are forced to. And we hope that the United States will do so.
Right. Ambassador Meligy, talks in South Africa touched on the UN Security Council reform. Now, how do you see the need for reforms to the world body?
Well, this is a long-dated subject. We've been talking, Egypt has been a very active member of the United Nations in seeking more fairness into the United Nations distribution of roles. I mean, it is not fair that one country is able to, by its own veto, it's able to reverse the position of the rest of the world against like the Palestinians that we've seen. And that's why, I mean, the case is so clear in every country's mind that the need to reform has surfaced again, and that everybody is talking, and every country is talking about the needs to reform. There are countries who are supposed to be in the Security Council. There are countries who are supposed to have the same right, just like the American, the British, the Russian, the French. All of them have this right. There are other countries who deserve. And at least not one country has the right to deter all the other countries for something that the whole world community has agreed on. This is totally unfair, and this defies the idea of the United Nations as an unbiased, as an impartial body that's supposed to look after the world security. But with this power in just the hands of one country, this is totally unfair to the rest of the world, especially that this is the only world organization that's supposed to treat all world issues and peace around the world. And if the situation is so, even the survival of the United Nations in the future can be deemed unrealistic, and this is what jeopardizes the whole world system now. So I think that Egypt, with South Africa, along with other countries, are totally right about seeking a new way and a new direction for the United Nations to be more fair and more just to the whole world, and not just to favor some countries over the others.
Right. Well, I would like to thank you so much, Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Many thanks for your insight. And dear viewers, now we move on to our special reports. Senior UN officials warned the Security Council of the risks of a new front opening in Sudan around the town of El Fasher in Darfur, where the population is already on the brink of starvation. More in the following report.
After a year of war between the armed forces of General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the paramilitaries of the Rapid Support Forces RSF under the command of General Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, the country is experiencing a crisis of epic proportions wholly man-made. The denouncement was made by Rosemary DiCarlo, UN Under-Secretary General for Political and Peace-Building Affairs. DiCarlo said, quote, "The warring parties have ignored repeated calls to cease their hostilities. Instead, they have stepped up preparations for further fighting, with both the SAF and the RSF continuing their campaigns to recruit civilians." In particular, she voiced concern at reports of a possible imminent attack by the RSF on El Fasher, the only capital of the 5 Darfur states it does not control, raising the specter of a new front in the conflict. El Fasher acts as a humanitarian hub for Darfur, which is home to around a quarter of Sudan's 48 million inhabitants. Until recently, the town had been relatively unaffected by the fighting, hosting a large number of refugees. But since mid-April, bombardments and clashes have been reported in the surrounding villages. DiCarlo added that fighting in El Fasher could unleash bloody intercommunal strife throughout Darfur and further hamper the distribution of humanitarian aid in a region already on the brink of famine. The region was already ravaged more than 20 years ago by the scorched earth policy carried out by the Janjaweed, militiamen who have since joined the RSF for then-President Omar al-Bashir. The new conflict in Sudan, which began on April 15, 2023, has already claimed thousands of lives and displaced more than 8.5 million people, according to the UN.
The abrupt resignation of the United Nations Special Envoy for Libya, Abdoulaye Bathily, is reportedly a blow to reconciliation efforts in the North African country.
Senegalese diplomat Abdoulaye Bathily, who on Tuesday tendered his resignation after only 18 months at the helm of the UN support mission UNSMIL, has repeatedly accused the rival leaders in Libya of perpetuating divisions to serve their own interests. Libya is still struggling to recover from years of war and chaos after the 2011 overthrow of longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi, and the country remains split between the revolutionary forces in the east and a later UN-recognized regime based in Tripoli. Speaking to reporters after submitting his resignation to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who accepted it, Bathily said the situation has deteriorated in recent months. Taking aim at leaders in the country that has seen repeated cycles of violence since 2011, the diplomat decried a lack of political will and good faith by the major Libyan actors who are comfortable with the current stalemate, as he said. General elections scheduled for December 2021 were postponed indefinitely amid persistent disagreements between Abdelhamid Beba's Tripoli-based government and the eastern-based administration backed by military strongman Khalifa Haftar. Until a successor is named, U.S. diplomat Stephanie Corey, who in March was named Bathily's deputy for political affairs, will serve in an interim capacity, a repeat of the scenario that unfolded after former envoy Ghassan Salami's resignation in 2020. Stephanie Williams, also from the U.S., was able to bring together Libyan representatives in February 2021 while she was serving as an interim replacement for Salame. That meeting in Geneva saw representatives agree on an interim authority to organize the presidential and parliamentary elections, which were due to be held at the end of 2021.
Well, that wraps up this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for more coming up here on Nile TV International.